climate change is real and its impact is being felt around the world, but there seems to be little real understanding of the global crisis. So UCT is hoping to change that by making messaging around it visually appealing as well as entertaining. It's launched the Climate Story Lab ZA, a first for the country, which will shift the narrative through creative arts. CSL ZA coordinator and UCT film lecturer Liani Maasdorp joins me now for this conversation. Liani, thank you so much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. Let's talk a little bit about this initiative. I love the program. The fact that we're able to tell the story and the narrative of climate change through storytelling, creative industries, theatre productions and the like. But talk to us a little bit about the conceptualization of this program.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The idea behind the Climate Story Labs, which is a project that's been run globally since 2019, is to bring storytellers and climate scientists and activists and those in the movement to fight climate change together with other potential partners and stakeholders to amplify really powerful storytelling like beautiful films and theatre pieces, VR, whatever it is that can be used to move people to change their behavior and move those in power to change policy around climate change.
Yeah, you know, you're speaking about policy around climate change. I believe COP27 is just around the corner. But really the biggest problem here has been how the rich nations are the greatest perpetrators when it comes to the climate crisis, and yet developing nations get to be the ones that feel the reverberations as well as the effects of these decisions that get made. So I often wonder about the imbalances of the scale. So on one side, you've got the rich nations that are emitting these gases, making tons and tons of money for their own benefit. Then we've got the African continent, which unfortunately gets to feel the impact of the very same decisions that get taken. And every time we have these COP27s and all these climate talks, it appears as though we are invited to speak at a table that was never designed for us in the first place, that does not have solutions speaking directly for us.
So we need to come up with creative ways to share messages from Africa and the rest of the global south about how we are being impacted by decisions that are being made elsewhere in the world. You mentioned in studio just a little while ago the low percentage, it's between 1% and 4% of carbon emissions that we are contributing from Africa. And yet, as the temperature rises globally, the temperature in Africa is rising faster than anywhere else. So we really are experiencing those impacts the most, as you say. And let's face it, the communities with the least resources are the least resilient to climate change. So those are really the stories that need to be shared. So we need to hear about the farmer in rural Botswana who is busy, with an education project where he's teaching his neighboring farmers how to plant trees, how to, treat the earth so that it is sustainable. Because really farmers and people in rural villages are not contributing anything to carbon emissions, and they are suffering tremendously. And for a very long time, stories have been told about Africa and the global south, and we want to resist that. We want to say there are powerful stories and there are fantastically competent and engaging storytellers in Africa and the rest of the global south that can tell these stories. So the Climate Story Lab is a 4-day get-together. We're going to take people away from their work and away from their families for 4 days, and we're going to focus entirely on how to make the stories as strong as they can be, how to partner with organizations like NGOs, climate experts, distributors, funders, and build a strategy for how to get powerful stories to the right audiences to effect change. Because we believe that for a particular story and for a particular change goal, your audience could be millions, but for another one, it could be one person who has the power to change something. The CEO of a company, for example, or the president of a country.
You know, as you're speaking there about the power to change, I was reading that, you know, unfortunately what's been a popular narrative is that people actually do not feel as though they've got anything to contribute to change, that the problem is so vast that how will my little voice actually contribute to greater policy change, to world leaders being able to do something actively about climate change, to presidents of states being able to say, hold on a second, let's hold those that are responsible accountable, especially those private sector companies that are making billions every year through the emissions of these dangerous gases, where the people get to feel the results at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And the different ways to reach those in power, to try and shift them to make change. And one way is to try and appeal to them directly. And the other way is to build a mass of support so that there is such a big votership that is putting pressure on government to legislate certain things that they cannot resist that wave of movement. And really the time to change is right now. They say that we need to cut 50% of carbon emissions by 2030. Otherwise, we're going to reach a tipping point from which we cannot return. And to make those changes, just think of all the changes we need to make to reduce carbon emissions by 50%. It's not going to just rely on individuals driving less, flying less, recycling more. Yes, it's great that we're doing all of those things, but we need the fuel companies to start investing in renewable energy in a meaningful way, not in a greenwashing way where they're investing a little bit of money in it just so that they can make a beautiful ad campaign around, you know, having some solar panels up on their garages. We need to really move people to make meaningful changes. And part of the message that we want to communicate through the stories that we're going to incubate at the Climate Story Lab is solutions. We want to look at what are those big things that we need to do. And I really believe that we can do this, but only if we all work together, if everybody contributes to making that change.
You're absolutely right, Liani. We'll have to leave it there for now. Liani Maasdorp, they're just giving us the latest. That is, of course, this wonderful Climate Story Lab ZA that will be under construction. It's a beautiful incubator program that shifts the narrative, amplifying the communication around climate change. I'm hoping